This is Seasons of Discontent with your hosts Rick Snyder and Matt Combs.
Welcome to Seasons of Discontent, Season 9, Episode 15, brought to you by Rick Snyder's Washington across social media. And I'm Rick Snyder.
I'm Matt.
And we're back discussing all things Washington sports and life as part of the mighty Rick Snyder Empire. All right, Matt, they could have been contenders, and once again they failed. Washington falls to the Philadelphia Eagles, and they said it was 38-31. I don't know. It was a close game. Washington was leading a lot of it. Among a hostile crowd of, 70% Eagles fans.
Mm-hmm.
But they had this game. They had this game, and then they made a critical mistake on a fourth down play. 4th and 1, they should have run it, converted, would have had 2-touchdown lead. Game would have changed. Instead, Sam threw his first bad pass of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sam threw another interception later. It cost him 7. So, man, it's just one of those games where Philly didn't seem to have any juice, but when they finally turned it on, they ran down the field.
Yeah, and that was the thing, and they didn't take the opportunity to capitalize on the Eagles' mistakes. You know, the Eagles fumbled twice on the damn goal line pretty much, and they didn't capitalize on them. I'll say this, I mean, one of the things that they've always said about Sam Howell was his short memory, and the kid's got a short memory, and they played awful against the Giants last week. We all remember that debacle. And then they came out firing on all cylinders yesterday. I don't know if it was the new offensive lineman, if it was the scheme, but Rick, my biggest takeaway is this team as a whole can never put it together. Either the offense is magnificent, and the defense sucks, or it's vice versa. Like, one can't get one's running on all cylinders, the other one can't get right. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and I think that boils down to coaching.
Yeah, if we really wanted to fantasize, this team could be 7-1.
They could.
If you could have won the 2 Eagles games and you didn't throw away the Bears game, I thought the Bears throwaway is the worst thing they did all year. And the only legit loss they would have had was to Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
And 7-1. What's the difference between 7-1 and 3-4? Coaching.
Yeah.
They weren't ready enough times. They didn't react well enough at times. This team could have been a contender. Instead, I don't see much happening to it.
Yeah, instead it's a team that's on the verge of possibly being blown up. You know what I mean? Getting rid of probably 2 of your defensive stars. Possibly we'll talk about it. Their backup quarterback. I mean, this is a team that's getting ready to go through a really big change. And you and I have talked about in the past, this is a change that's needed. I mean, we've begged them to kind of blow it up the past couple times that they've gotten a new head coach, and they just kind of retool and get stuck in the middle.
Yeah. At this point, the trade deadline is 4 p.m. Tuesday. So trick or treat, go what you want. I think it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know what the ownership is talking about. We're still getting to figure out the ownership. I don't know that they get really involved. I know Ron would just figure stand pat. What's he want to trade picks for?
Right.
That kind of thing. But the one I'm really intrigued about the most is Jacoby Brissett, because Minnesota just lost their quarterback. They could go get Colt McCoy, on a free agency pile. But Jacoby Brissett's at least been in somebody's camp. He's been practicing every day. He just hasn't played because of Sam. But Jacoby Brissett's known as a good spot starter. And if I was Minnesota, if you could offer, I don't know, Jacoby's under contract next year too, so it's not a quick rental. They got a chance, to be something, because they're on a roll. And I don't think Kirk's going to play again with an ACL injury. That's the guy I think makes the most sense to try and trade. Now, Montez Sweat and Chase Young, we talk about 3rd-round picks compensation by the league in next year's draft if they sign elsewhere. But that depends on a formula of who does Washington sign as a free agent too. So if they go out there and sign some things, that could get wiped out if they go get somebody big themselves. So now at least, if you trade them for a 3, you got a 3 in your hand, because you may not have any guys on the field.
Of all the rumors that we've heard, Atlanta's is a third that can possibly go up to a second if Montez signs a long-term deal with Atlanta, and they have said that they want to trade for him and sign him to a new deal before the end of the season. And I think that's the move. You can't keep Chase and Sweat. Sweat is 5 years older than Chase. At least give ownership an opportunity to keep a guy like Chase Young. I mean, look, we can talk about his on-field play, but what he brings to this team, he brings national recognition. He's very recognizable on the field. You can always pick him out. And, he was the number 2 overall pick in the draft. Montez, I hate to say it, but we jumped back in to get Montez Sweat at the tail end of the first round. So if I was Marty, Matt, whatever you wanted to call me, I'm looking to deal Sweat. I would take Atlanta's deal because obviously Kyle Smith's down there in Atlanta. He wants the guy that he drafted. I would take that deal. Make it a third. If he signs a long-term deal with them, then it turns into a second. You've got a second from Atlanta in your pocket. Atlanta's probably going to be a middle of the road team. And let the new management structure, whatever it's going to look like next year. Hopefully it's a team president, a GM, a new coach, and new staff, and let them pick. But I get what you're saying with Ron. Why would Ron help out the next guy? Ron knows he's not going to be here next year. Why would he? What does he care what this franchise looks like after this year?
You give me a 2 for Montez, deal is done. See you, Montez.
Done. Look, and that's the thing, Rick. I mean, we talked about all these vaunted first-round draft picks on this defensive line. You got Daron Payne and John Allen and Montez Sweat and Chase Young and da-da-da-da-da-da. Sweat is such a roller coaster of a player. We saw it during the Arizona games where he could dominate. But then recently, you haven't really seen him all that much. I mean, Chase Young came back. Chase isn't making the sacks and he's not getting to the quarterback, but he is pressuring the quarterback at least. And maybe it's because he is easier to pick out when, watching on television. But to me, it seems like Chase Young is the no-brainer to hang on to. The other no-brainer to hang on to is Sam Howell. I mean, I can't, I don't know. Can we play the Eagles like 5-6 times maybe? If the refs didn't get involved, we might actually win a game or two against them.
Yeah, I mean, Sam had an amazing day in some respects. 39 of 52, 397, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 114 rating. I'd say I'd take that every day, but I only gave him a B minus in my grades, and people were upset all the time. If you see my grades, they're here on YouTube and also on Twitter. But I'm not going to give out a participation trophy. You threw a bad play on the 4th down touchdown, and you threw a bad interception that cost him a touchdown. 2 touchdowns. So I got to take that off a little bit and lost the game. So I round down in losses. But overall, he only had 1 sack. They did a good job there. And I like the new offense, which is something I've been talking about. I've been talking about it. He should sure know it. Quicker passes, get the ball out of your hand. They did a good job. They moved it to different targets. Jahan Dotson had 10 targets and 8 receptions and a touchdown.
Jamison Crowder had a touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, Samuel hurt his toe and came out. Crowder caught 7 of 7 balls at him, including a touchdown. I mean, Crowder's still in my rotation.
And guess what? We saw a Logan Thomas sighting. I mean, Logan's been non-existent this year.
And I told everybody, put him on your fantasy team. 6 catches, 44 yards, and a touchdown. That's the new offense, more than Terry and more of downfield with Diami or whatever. They're going more quicker. So does it continually work? I don't know. I mean, Philly had to be figuring that out. Philly was really dull for a lot of that game. But I like the offense he did, although 52 passes and 16 runs in a game that you pretty much were in control.
That's what I wanted to bring up. That's what I wanted to bring up. I mean, Brian Robinson had that really long run, and then the running game just disappeared. Like, I understand it's a pass-happy league, but when you have guys like a Brian Robinson, we talked about it all offseason. You have the Thunder and Lightning. You got the old New York Giants, Ron Dane and Tiki Barber combo. You got the bruiser that can wear down the defensive line, that can wear down linebackers. And then you got the speedy guy that can catch balls out of the backfield and get out on beyond the tackles. They do like 1 or 2 run plays One of them works, and Bieniemy's like, all right, guys, well, we made the fans happy because we ran the ball, but we're going back to throwing it. Like, there has to be more of a balance. You played a lot of this game with a lead. You needed to eat the clock up because you saw how quick the quick strike ability that the Eagles have with AJ Brown. And I didn't even know they had the guy from Atlanta. I didn't even know they signed him. Where did he come from? Yeah.
Julio.
But then it was Julio Jones. That's it. I couldn't even remember his name. Julio Jones comes out of nowhere. You got a first round draft pick in Devonta Smith. You got AJ Brown, who's a highlight reel, who's like, I think for like 6 or 7 consecutive games has had over 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, dude is a monster, and they have that quick strike ability. With Hurts, he's elusive. We know that offensive line is really good. So you needed to run the ball. You needed to control the clock. You needed to burn time. You give the Eagles 30 seconds, they're going to score. You know, it just boils down to it, where you have to run the ball more.
See, I thought EB blew it when they're 4th and 1. Why aren't you running the ball? You're doing okay with running the ball. They averaged 5.3 a carry. You know, Robinson averaged 5.9. I mean, you only needed 1 yard, and then you're around the 10-yard line. You know, instead you threw a pass, and that's a bigger risk, and it didn't work out. So Sam shouldn't have had to throw.
And I don't even know why Sam tried to throw the ball. He could have got it with his legs.
Yeah, and it was, you know, also the offensive line. You have Chris Paul at guard. You have Tyler Lawson at center. Nick Gates gets benched, and Sadiq Charles goes on IR. I thought they played pretty decent. I mean, the Phillies a decent pass rushing team, and they only got a garbage sack at the end. And this team managed to hold up long enough. And part of that is you were throwing quicker passes. So, you know, Sam wasn't in the backfield, 7-step drops and looking lost. So that helped some. But I thought this, you know, the O-line, you know, did a decent job. I gave him a good grade. You know, so who would have guessed they could do all these things? You guessed that you could get 420 yards of offense, I think, and you lose.
It just amazes me how bipolar this team is, because what we saw in New York last week compared to what we saw against Philadelphia this week, it was night and day. And I'm sorry, but Wiley is going to be a freaking issue every game that they keep him in, but I don't think they have anybody that can replace him. And I know you have to play him because you gave him a bunch of money in the offseason, but you know, Wiley's going to be an issue. Wiley was the reason that they had 1 sack, you know, and I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of issues with this team that obviously can't be solved week to week. It's going to take some sort of a teardown, and I think it starts with trading some pieces.
And, you know, Forbes did not have a good game again in a limited time. They played.
Well, before you even get into it, I want to give you this. I'm going to give you this. He was benched. He played 5 plays last game. This game, you throw him up against one of the best wide receivers in the league, AJ Brown, and say, hey, go cover him one-on-one. Does that make sense to you?
And it didn't work out. But an interesting part of it is Daryl Green was being honored at the game. And so I went and saw him before the game with a bunch of reporters. And you know, you may have seen me in some other videos. You know, I told Daryl, I'll stand next to you so I can be on videos all the time. And Daryl just goes, I could fix him in 10 minutes. And I'm like, what? And he even showed a video of some, you know, just mechanics and stuff. He said, we could fix. He said, now corners, he says, they aren't getting much coaching. He says, I never got much coaching. You know, Emmanuel, I don't think is getting it. And I thought, well, I would make a call Monday morning over to the park and say, you got 10 minutes? Come by at lunch? Sure. Which fix this? I don't know if Daryl said that. It was a little crazy, but Daryl was one of the Hall of Famers. I thought it was interesting on that.
Well, you know, I hope Emmanuel Forbes sees that video and reaches out to him, because clearly the kid needs some sort of direction. He needs some sort of help. But, you know, at the same time, like I just said, you can't really fault the kid. He was benched. He played 5 snaps against the Giants, and then you throw him out there against AJ Brown. Come on, man. That don't make any sense to me.
All right, so in our last minute or so, Halloween's coming. I think we ask you this every year. Where are you going as this year?
I'm going to be the dad sitting in the front yard handing out candy while my kids go walk around.
How boring.
No, it's fun.
I'll be a sports writer. I'll put my press pass in my hat, and no, I don't know. I live now on a big, long, empty street. And I don't turn off the lights, and I don't think anybody will come near me. And the candy's all mine.
Okay, next year we can
That's
swap. Next year we can swap. You can be a gas man. I'll be a sports writer.
All right. Well, some people say that. So, all right. So we're going to be back Thursday with the next edition of all kind of stuff. Here we are at mid-season already. I mean, kind of
moving fast.
Everything. Lots of stuff. So I'm Rick Snyder.
I'm Matt.
See you soon.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Seasons of Discontent with your hosts, Rick Snyder and Matt Combs.